I just wanted to give you a starting sense of why we thought this conference was worthwhile and what the MicroPasts project, how it was born, essentially. There's further information on that in the first talks of the day, so I won't go into any great detail. But just to say that MicroPasts itself is an initiative that started in October 2013, and it's funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council as part of their Connected Communities and Digital Transformations scheme. So it's part of a wider research initiative to try and enhance the degree of community coordination, community engagement across all of the arts and humanities. And our particular effort has been a collaboration between the British Museum and University College London, particularly the Institute of Archaeology. And we have a particular interest in various aspects of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, history, archaeology, heritage, and all related good things. So hence the proposed title for today. Just to give you a sense of background, it's not really fair to say that crowdsourcing and crowdfunding are an approach which is very, very recent in archaeology. To be honest, they've been there as part of the apparatus of getting research done for a very long time indeed. So some of the earliest excavations were deliberately mosaic funded in ways that you could conceivably call crowdfunding. They were built up from individual donations of various sorts. Some of the earliest excavations in the UK had a very strong public archaeology agenda, and as part of that you could say that volunteerism has been part of excavation, particularly in the UK, for a very long time. Also, as I'll note in a minute, MicroPasts and related activities that you'll hear about today, none of those would really claim, I don't think, that they were in any way the first people to try and do this sort of thing. But it's fair to say that the internet, mobile telecommunications, all of our modern technologies, they turbocharge these kind of activities potentially. So even if we're not talking about the first advent of these kind of strategies, we can say that there's been a sea change, a step change in terms of our ability to encourage these sorts of activities in, say, the last 5 to 10 years, really. Archaeology should be well positioned in terms of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding because, well, archaeological record, it's a massively ubiquitous, rapidly dwindling, constantly threatened, geographically dispersed resource. So quite amenable to these strategies of getting the public, who are also dispersed around the world, for example, to get involved. It's poorly funded, but there is visibly a strong public interest. So that means that it should be something that can generate engagement in useful ways. And it also suffers from a major research backlog. So if you're thinking in terms of archaeology as a research endeavor, then we're embarrassingly behind in terms of harnessing our existing research potential. And perhaps one way to get around that obstacle, which has been with us for 50, 100 years, is much greater enlistment of the public in research data generation and research data analysis. If you turn to other subjects such as documentary history, obviously it would be unfair to say that history has exactly the same context in terms of its interests in crowdsourcing as archaeology, but some of the same potential probably does apply in terms of a massive amount of research data, for example, that hasn't been harnessed as much as it should have done yet, and a great public interest. And if we broaden our horizons more widely, then you can think of heritage, tangible heritage, intangible heritage, as something in the present day that we can harness in powerful ways through these kinds of approaches. Hopefully today you'll get a sense of the diversity of approaches to citizen science, to crowdsourcing, to crowdfunding that now exist, both within the arts and humanities and beyond them in the natural sciences and elsewhere. This is just a mosaic view of a range of different projects that are relevant today. Just to note that top one, which is sometimes causes all sorts of debate in the sort of academic archaeological world, that's the megalithic portal, a website that's been around since 2001. That's a very, very good example of early archaeological crowdsourcing. People have been uploading photos of megaliths and coordinates since 2001. That's really quite early. And it's generated debate. Some people feel that it encourages fringe archaeologies and poor data quality and all of these terrible things. But to be honest, I know plenty of colleagues in the sort of academic world who regularly use that data for their archaeological analysis. So I think that there's a lot going for that kind of approach. And some of the more recent projects, of which MicroPasts is one, I think should note a debt of partial inspiration to projects like that one. Lastly, I just wanted to say that we live in a world of data deluge now. Some people in some disciplines call it big data. Vast amounts of information flowing from mobile telecommunications, the internet, social media, all of those sorts of things. In archaeology, sometimes we face that level of big data problem, amounts of information we can hardly handle, but often it's just a range of a flood of commercial-led, developer-led information coming in, archiving of academic resources with things like the Archaeological Data Service, and a whole host of other things that now mean we have far more digital data to play with than we did before. Crowdsourcing comes in two ways there. One, it's going to generate levels of new amounts of data that are conceivably a big data problem, so it might be worth discussing today. And two, it offers opportunities for leveraging some of that existing data. So in general, I think just having this wider context of the floods of information we now have to deal with is quite important. Okay, so I'll leave it there. And our first talk for the morning is Chiara Benaki and Adi Keenan Skunde introducing crowd-fueled archaeology and history online.